Hello, Trey. I'm going to be talking about and reading through your paper one, Power Producing Machines. And you get the free Michael Jackson included today as my cousin put that album up. Okay. There are many ways to produce electricity. Electrons can flow between certain different materials, providing a current as in a common battery. While reliable and portable, chemical batteries run down quickly. Quote, the history of power generation is long and convoluted, marked by myriad technological milestones, conceptual and technical, from hundreds of contributors. Many accounts begin power's story at the demonstration of electric conduction by Englishman Stephen Gray, which led to the 1740 invention of glass friction generators in Leyden, Germany. That development is said to have inspired Benjamin Franklin's famous experiments, as well as the invention of the battery by, well, I don't know anything about that. Invention of the battery by Italy's Alessandro Volta. Oh, Volta. I get it. Humphrey Davy's first effective, quote, arc lamp in 1808, and in 1820, Hans Christian somebody's demonstration of the relationship between electricity and magnetism. In 1830, and arguably the most pivotal contribution to modern power systems, Michael Faraday and Joseph Henry invented a primitive electric motor. I feel like I've heard of Faraday. And in 1831, documented that an electric current can be produced in a wire moving near a magnet, demonstrating the principle of the generator, said by Power magazine. To provide the large amounts of steady power demanded by modern societies, large power plants have been built. Most power plants make electricity with a machine called a generator. Okay, and that's your first paragraph. You have so much information here, and I like so much of it that I kind of hate to say, but I feel like you need to focus it in a little bit. Okay, so one thing is your quotation marks start up at the history of power generation right there, and then I think you forgot to put the other quotation marks to show that you were finished quoting. Okay, either that happened, which I understand that happens all the time, or the other thing that happened was you used all of that is a really long quote from Power magazine. Okay, so if you just forgot to show where your quote ends, you can do that. If that's just one long quote, here's how I would revise that, and you can just skip over that if this is just a typo or whatever. But okay, so you wanted to quote some stuff about the history of power generation, and you talked about Gray, and you talked about glass friction, and you talked about Franklin, and Volta, and Davy, and Oersted, or something like that, and Faraday and Henry. So you talked about 7 different people in this history. And I think you're working too hard, basically. That's what I'm about to say. I would choose maybe 3 of those. Human thought, for whatever reason, just seems to work really well in 3s. That's like an amount of information that, for the most part, we can hold in our heads and kind of compare and stuff. So yeah, I think I would choose maybe 3 people to kind of give us a little background, kind of leading up to where we're going. Of course, I don't know exactly where we're going yet because I haven't finished the paper, but yeah, and talk a little bit about each one. The other thing I will mention about this section is that when you say something like, when you're talking about Benjamin Franklin's experiments, you don't have to quote that. You don't have to, you could mention that it's like with the kite and the key, or I don't even know if that's true, but that's common knowledge that Benjamin Franklin did some stuff like that. And I would also say that if it's kind of an agreed upon thing, like an everybody knows thing, which I'm guessing it probably is, that Faraday and Henry did this, you also don't need to quote that from a book or quote that from a website. You can just say this happened in this year. I'm guessing probably all of these fall into that kind of historical category where like everyone agrees that this is what happened. We could argue maybe about exactly what it means, but okay, sorry, that was a lot for paragraph 1. Power generating systems. But I love the way that you gave like all the history leading up to it. I thought that was cool. Power generating systems are generally treated as heat engines to convert their heat input. Convert heat input into work, hence to produce electricity at a sustained rate. Heat input is supplied by burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, and biomass, or processing nuclear fuel, or harvesting thermal energy from renewable energy sources. Generators have two important parts, the rotor and the stator. Generators use the principle of electromagnetic induction, which exploits the relation between magnetism and electricity. In large AC generators, I might write out alternating current there. I don't know. If it's for other engineers, obviously they wouldn't write it out. But an outer shell with powerful magnets rotates around a stationary armature, which is wound with heavy wire. As they move, the magnets induce an electrical current in the wire. It is important to recognize that electricity is not mined or harvested. It must be manufactured. Huh. I definitely never really thought about it that way. And since it's not easily stored in quantity, it must be manufactured at a time of demand. Wow, could this be any more timely from like a few weeks ago? Electricity is a form of energy, but not an energy source. Different generating plants harness different energy sources to make electric power. Okay, so in that paragraph, you talked us through basically how generators work and basically like what electricity is. I thought that was pretty solid. Most of the U.S. and world electricity generation is from electric power plants that use a turbine to drive electricity generators. Most of the world electricity generation is from generators that are based on scientist Michael Faraday's discovery in 1831. Aha. So let's not mention him, I would suggest, in the intro, because you're going to talk about him later. That moving a magnet inside a coil of wire makes an electric current flow flow in the wire. The force of the fluid on the blade spins/rotates the rotor shaft of a generator. Is there a reason you use both those words? To me, it seems like just pick one, but I don't know much about generating electricity, so maybe you have a reason. The generator, in turn, converts the mechanical energy of the rotor to electrical energy. Steam and combustion turbines can be operated as standalone generators in a single cycle or combined in a sequential combined cycle. Combined cycle systems use combustion gases from one turbine to generate more electricity in another turbine. There are many different types of electricity generators that do not use turbines to generate electricity. The most common in use today are solar photovoltaic systems and internal combustion engines. Solar photovoltaic cells convert sunlight directly into electricity. They're used to power small devices such as wristwatches and may connect together in panels that are connected together in arrays to power individual homes or form large power plants. Michael Faraday has made the first electricity generator. Michael Faraday's made? Maybe you just mean Michael Faraday made the first electricity generator called the Faraday disk, which operates on this relationship between magnetism and electricity, and which led to the design of the electromagnetic generators that we use today. Electricity will be forever used in the world today and only may get stronger as years pass. 87% of the world has no access to electricity. Wow. Okay, you saved the bomb for the very end. Okay, and this must be you answered for yourself. Where does most electric? Okay, cool. That actually does help me because the style in which you wrote your paper doesn't naturally let me know what questions you were answering. So, which is really fine, but extra helpful. Okay, and looking at your works cited, from what I'm seeing, I think this mostly looks okay. That first December 22nd, 2020 doesn't belong there, though. Yeah. Depending on the style that you're using, sometimes some styles include the when you accessed it and when it was written, or when it was written and when it was posted, or I don't know, weird stuff like that. But it looks like you have your date down there, 23 December 2020, so maybe that's just a typo you need to delete. If the article has no author, then you would just start with the title of the article. history of power. If you don't have something, you just leave it out. Okay, time check for me. Anything else I wanted to say here? That's a little short, Trey. You knew it was a little short. You probably knew it was a little short. So, in order for you to follow the assignment a little more strongly, by having it be a full 3 pages, I would say, an easy way to do that. Let me look back here. So we have a paragraph about how power is generated. We have a paragraph basically about how generators work. And then you went into different types of generators. So, natural, and let me get back to your questions too. Who invented the first power producing system? Where did power come from? One way you could extend this, so it's a full 3 pages, is to think about when you talk about the first power producing system, you could spend some time talking about how people got power they needed before electricity. I think that could be an interesting kind of way to also introduce your subject. Or towards the end here, solar photovoltaic cells. You talked about some, I could use some more detail myself. I have questions about, okay, most of it comes from electric power plants that use a turbine. I don't know, I could use a little bit more explanation about how solar panels convert it directly to electricity. Yeah, I could definitely use more explanation there. So that's another place you could expand, so that when you revise, you'll have a full 3 pages, and that'll be good. Okay, thanks for your paper, Trey. I enjoyed learning about Michael Faraday.